Well, this is an attempt to add to the bucket list caravan story. I was out traveling in the caravan last night, and June and I were in this really old travel lodge. It was in good shape physically, but looked like it would be welcome in a homeless shelter or a homeless encampment. Then some friends were in an old Winnebago, and they helped us with the driving, and we went down to our friends Amy and James down in Santa Cruz. And Amy and James' property got burned off, and there was just bare rock, and you could see some young plants starting up again, and life was returning, and I think they're going to rebuild it. But we had a nice time there, and we'd been at the beach the day before, and so we were all feeling really good, and we brought out the big cook pot, and somebody had found some box of zucchinis, and somebody else had found some food, and we made a nice soup, and somebody cooked some bread, and so we had a nice time. And June and I, on our caravan, there was a little flag, and if we put the flag up on the car antenna, that just meant we need to be alone. So there was singing and praying and some bit of drumming, and we had a good time. And then we set out from there and drove down to Big Sur, a very important place for me and for June. And then at a certain point, we drove inland by Bixby Bridge, and it was really, they tell you not to drive RVs there, but we took a risk. And then we came out way down and then drove north again and went to Limekiln Campground, or what was left of it. It was burned out, I think, 3 years ago. And I had a couple of trees who were friends of mine way up the valley, and they were thousands of years old, apparently, and they'd been too big to cut, like the banks. And I went up to visit them, and even their roots were gone. The fire had been that hot. And there's a monastery, a Christian monastery there, and a special place, and we went up there and visited. And it was really great to camp by the ocean again. I don't remember if the campground was open, but somehow we got in there. And it's amazing the ingenuity of people after a tragedy like a big fire, you know. You clear away the dirt, sweep the ashes away, and start over. And then we went south, and we went up Hunter Liggett Road, and Hunter Liggett Road passes by a very special spot, and you can't find it. It's just a crack in a cliff. But you go through the crack and you come into this teacup, and it's got sand on it, and it had burned out too. And we spent some time there, and then we continued along Hunter Liggett and went through the army base, and you know, we'd all agreed not to have anything illegal or do anything illegal on this adventure. And we drove across country to the White Mountain, where I'd gone years and years ago with my friend Stephen Aldridge. And we went up White Mountain, and we got as high as the Bristlecone Pine National Forest. I think the oldest trees in America, or maybe the world, I don't know. A very special place to meditate. Leaned up against one of those trees. And the vehicles were too big and too old to go the rest of the way up the road. So somebody arrived eventually, and they took carloads. They were like our shuttle bus. And we went up to the top of the road, which is about 4,000 feet from the summit. And some people decided they would climb the 4,000 feet. I couldn't do it, but I did it with Stephen years before. And you get to the top of that place, and there's a military something building made out of stones up there. But if you go to the edge, you look down on Death Valley. So here you are, way 14,000 feet, and you're looking down at Death Valley. It's a treat. But anywhere up there, you just see, you're looking at this ridge of mountains. It goes all the way up into Canada, I think. And anyway, we had some good times there, and then we came down, and we drove along, and somebody wanted to go somewhere in Nevada City. They had a friend, so we stopped there for a while, and then we drove to Carson City in Nevada, and June and I went to see June's brother Mark, and he lives out that way. And he's a very special guy, nice guy. And then we somehow, I think we went east again, but then we went south. And we had some stops along the way, which I don't remember. But June and I wanted to go to her Aunt Lapida's grave in around Tijuana, I think. And it was a real problem. And somehow we got Felice, our feral cat, who was getting used to van travel. We got him across the border and back in. But that was a very touching thing. And I'd never met Lapida, but she had married June's father's brother. And he was a really good man. He used to teach school, I guess, in San Diego or something. And then we drove out into the desert and went to see my friend Jet and spent some time, and then headed for Tucson. And we got to Tucson, and we visited with our friends Sandra and Michael and Lorinda and a whole pile of people, and Dove and Jason, and we had a great time there. We were there for about a week, staying in different places. The three, you only stay in the same place three nights, like fish. You don't overextend your welcome. And where did we go from there? I think Santa Fe, and we went to Santa Fe, and we found our friend Kyle met us there, and we went to Ross Llewellyn's store in Santa Fe. And Ross and our friend Lauren Smith, were really good friends. And in my dream, Kyle and Ross Llewellyn's daughter had taken over running the non-Indigenous Friends of Native Culture website and videos and that kind of stuff about gratitude for Native cultures. That, we all have gained so much from Native cultures all over the world. And I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for a band of Ojibwe folks that kept my grandmother's and her father alive, and they were trying to homestead on land that they had purchased from the King of England, and he'd stolen it from the people who were helping them. Now that's pretty sophisticated culture. Talk about all that Christian stuff about love your enemies and stuff like that. It's like pretty big thinking. I don't know how I got digressed onto that. I forgot we were on the story. But anyway, so Ross and Kaio and June and I and our friends, and we just had a really fine time. And we were there for 3 days, and then we headed for Durango, and got a dear friend, Josh. He lives there, And I got to meet his family. I'd never met them in person before. And then we drove down to Albuquerque, and we went down to see friends Pam and Mark, and visit his son Cody, who had died by suicide. And that was a pretty touching thing. And, you know, Cody's is Jewish, so we left a rock just to say that somebody still remembered him and was visiting his grave. And then we went back in the van, and we went up to the Hopi Nation and up to the First Mesa and hung out there for a little while. And then in this dream last night, my friend Hero, he flew out to Albuquerque, and he went up and he introduced us to folks on the Navajo reservation. Now, his ancestors were samurai in Japan, and he got to be a doctor, and he opted to be a doctor on the on the Navajo reservation. But because he wasn't a white guy, people kind of took to him. He's a nice, takeable guy, but and they took to him, and so they took him to places and events that white guys just don't get to, because white guys, most of us are pretty untrustworthy around anybody who's not like us, and especially around indigenous peoples everywhere, because we can see that they're suffering a lot, and I think, just deep in our core, we don't even know we're feeling it, feel guilty that we kind of wrecked their cultures, and we don't like to see them suffering, and we can see they're suffering. But anyway, the dream kind of leaves off there, but that was a pretty fine time. So I thought you might be into enjoying being on the road trip. Oh, and the other funny thing was that somebody had worked out that somebody was bean counting or looking after all the money things, you know, because this is part of the enough tribe, that we've got enough, and if you got something extra, you share it. And so people were hearing the real trip, you know, like and seeing it on media and stuff, and they would somehow get money into gas credit cards. So we had money for repairs. And I think there was at one point on the trip we were traveling on a blue road called Route 66, and we took a little detour up to a place called Peachy Springs, and it's on a indigenous people's reservation. I hate that name. And we had a breakdown. So we were there for about 4 days while some part came for one of the vehicles, and it was a hoot. Oh my God, it was a hoot. And it had changed. I'd been through there 30 years ago, and you know, Route 66 is where a lot of people got to California. A lot of people buried at the side of the road, and you could feel their graves, unmarked graves, but you could feel these brave people and desperate people who had to get up and get out of Oklahoma and places like that, and trying for a better life. But anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and do make your own videos, because I love stories, and somehow let me know about your stories, and I'll watch them, because I love watching stories and videos. And okay, thanks a lot. Bye.